Please find a comfortable position to sit. I'll give you some instruction at the beginning of our one-day retreat. You might say, whatever we're doing today, we're trying to do it mindfully, with mindfulness, with sati, with clear comprehension, sampajanya. So, mindfully find a posture, a way to sit that you can hold and sustain for a while. But if you have to move, you can move, but move mindfully. We always begin a meditation retreat by taking the 3 refuges in Buddha Dhamma Sangha and then undertaking the 8 precepts. They're like the guidelines for a retreat, for living in a monastery or some kind of center or quiet place, the heart of which is what we call the practice of nekkhamma. So for a day and night, you're practicing harmlessness, not killing, stealing, abusing other people. You're also practicing celibacy, and you're simplifying your life for this day and night. Eating just in the morning, sleeping on a simple bed tonight maybe, and so on. Avoiding entertainments, distractions, so that you can focus your mind on cultivating sati sampajanya, mindfulness, clear comprehension, so that you can understand the Dhamma better, free your mind from suffering. So in effect, you're all like temporary monks for the day. This practice of nekkhamma is what the monk's life is all about, centered around. And whether you're a man, woman, layperson or ordained, this forms the center of the practice for liberating your heart from greed, anger, delusion, what we call kilesa, mental defilements. And the reason you're here because you have faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. That's why we take the refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. You have the faith, the belief that the Buddha was an enlightened being, meaning somebody completely free from suffering. The Buddha was somebody who cultivated a path that leads to the end of suffering, purified his mind of greed, anger, delusion. And the result of that was completely purified his mind and had great wisdom, not only to train himself, but to teach others out of compassion. So he had great wisdom, great compassion. And the quality of those teachings is such that we still have them today, which is why we're here today. We want to practice and gain some of that happiness that the Buddha was talking about. So keeping the 8 precepts is something we may not be able to do every day, but from time to time in our life, we can commit to following the 8 precepts for a day or for a period of time on retreat to help us have more mindfulness, more discipline, more effort, and to focus our mind on the Dhamma. As we all know, our mind is so easily distracted by life, the world, our family, our work, all the things we're involved with. We all know we're endlessly thinking about stuff, problems, other people, ourselves, everything. And you've probably already noticed that doesn't bring you happiness or peace. We have little glimpses of happiness, maybe moments of happiness, but we also have a lot of stress and confusion and unhappiness. And that's why we've come to practice Dhamma. And Dhamma is really just the truth of the way things are. But much of the time we're feeling unhappy or stressed because we don't see the Dhamma or know the Dhamma in that moment. And this is why the Buddha encouraged us to practice sila, undertake precepts to train yourself, samadhi, cultivating mindfulness, states of calm, stillness, and then develop panya, insight, wisdom into the nature of things, so we're not deluded or lost anymore. That's what we're doing here today, cultivating this path, cultivating this understanding of Dhamma, the truth. You notice when you understand things better, then immediately your mind feels better, more peaceful. We say when you lose the Dhamma, you forget the Dhamma, that's when suffering starts. So like with precepts, when you have the precepts and you're mindful of your precepts, you have Dhamma. You're not bothering anyone, you're not hurting or harming anyone through your speech, your actions. You know how to let go of the desire to hurt other people, take from them. When you forget that, then you lose the Dhamma. You forget the Dhamma. You can see that even today you may have moments when you notice how you've forgotten the Dhamma. Even though you're on retreat, maybe there'll be times when you just want to go back to your phone and find out all that stuff about the world. Or talk to your friends and talk about other people, who you like, who you don't like. And the Dhamma disappears. Maybe your precepts disappear. Having the Dhamma also means having mindfulness and cultivating mindfulness. What we call bhavana, mental cultivation. In a place like this, a monastery is a place for cultivating mindfulness, bhavana. Not just when you're sitting in here on the cushion, but when you're out there walking. We do walking meditation to cultivate mindfulness. When you're eating, cleaning, going here, going there, all the things you do, we call this bhavana. This is how the Buddha taught to cultivate mindfulness in all postures, on all activities. And a monastery is a place where we're learning to do that. This is how our teacher, Luang Por Chah, taught. Luang Por Chah used to say over and over again, whether you're standing, walking, sitting, lying down even, know yourself. Know yourself means bring up this quality of sati, sampajanya, and then see the Dhamma in that moment, understand the Dhamma. Maybe just the Dhamma of arising and passing away, of different feelings and thoughts, the changes in your body. So he's always encouraging us to know ourselves. The opposite is not knowing yourself. Your mind is no longer with Dhamma, you're lost in the world again, in the world of endless thinking, emotions, worries, concerns. He's always encouraging us to bring the mind back to the present moment, cultivate mindfulness in the present moment. And this is how the Buddha taught. Abandon the past, let go of the future, dwell in the present moment. That's how we train. And you notice, in the course of your life, in the course of a day, how much of the time you spend dwelling in the past. What he said, what she said, what I did, what they did. All these things we think about what happened yesterday, last week, last year. Constantly going back into the past, reliving it, wanting it to be different. I wish it hadn't happened. I wish it could have been better. Or I wish I could have held on to that good thing. Or else we're thinking about the future, aren't we? What I plan to do, what I want. I hope next year will be better. When I get this, then all my problems will be solved. We're always planning and projecting into the future, going back into the past, and so we always miss the present moment. Not mindful. When you practice mindfulness, you're bringing attention to the present moment, which is the most useful thing for us as humans, because that's where you can learn and understand where suffering comes from and how to end it. But it takes practice. And we're here to practice for a day, and you hear me reminding you, be mindful of the in-breath and the out-breath, or recite the word Buddho. And there's different objects, meditation objects we use to help us be more mindful in the present moment. And the teacher reminds you what to do, how to do it, why, but still you have to do it. The Buddha said over and again, he's the one who points the way, but he can't do it for you. He can't make you mindful. He can encourage you, he teaches you, explains to you why mindfulness is useful. He said it's actually the most useful quality you can have. It's always useful, always good. But he can't actually make you mindful. You have to do that. So that's what we're doing here. We set up a retreat so you have a day to practice. One of the biggest sufferings when you practice mindfulness is noticing when you're not mindful. We don't like it when we notice how unmindful we are. So we often experience some disappointment, feel fed up, feel tired. These are normal obstacles we all have to deal with. And you'll notice when you practice meditation like we're doing now, you have a period where maybe you have good energy, inspired, and you try and you put attention on your breathing. And then you have periods when you lose all that and you're back into what we call mental proliferation, and the mind wandering all over the place, back into the past, projecting forward into the future. The last place the mind wants to stay is in the present moment. It's almost like we're allergic to the present moment. We'd rather go back into all the thinking and worrying. But the important thing is to see that when we are mindful, panya, wisdom, insight can arise because mindfulness is there, because we know. We know our body, our mind, we know what's happening, paying attention. When we're not mindful, we can't really know. We can only know what we remember or what we think, but that's not knowledge, direct knowledge of the present moment. You might call it thinking about the present moment, but not actually knowing the present moment. So we have to practice bringing the mind back to the present moment, and it's very frustrating. We don't like it some of the time. It's too hard, too difficult. So we also need to cultivate metta, karuna, kindness, compassion for ourselves as well as for other people. Just when you're teaching a kid to do something difficult, but you know it's good for them, some task, teaching them to do their homework or clean their room or do a sport or something. Maybe the kid doesn't really want to do it, but you use kindness and words of encouragement to help them get over their frustration, their unwillingness to do that task. We have to do the same with ourselves. When your mind is getting fed up during the meditation, you have to come back to the quality of metta, goodwill. Gently bring your mind back to the practice. And the technique is just a technique. It's maybe watching your breath, counting the breath, or reciting the word Buddha. But you also need to look at the attitude you have towards the meditation. Because if you start getting frustrated and then you feel annoyed with yourself, or irritated, and you don't know that, you're not aware of that, well, it will lead you to want to stop, give up. So you need to find the words or the reflection that will help you come back to the present moment, to put effort into bringing up mindfulness. So sometimes we remember our teachers, the Buddha, Rinpoche. Sometimes we bring up this quality of compassion, wanting the best for ourselves, for others, and so on. We look for ways to gently persuade ourselves back to the meditation. Not out of anger or hatred, but just wishing ourselves well and using our time to develop mindfulness while we have it. And that's another reflection that helps, is reminding ourselves we're not here forever. Life doesn't go on forever. Every day we get older. And one day we'll be older than this. And when you get older, everything maybe gets a little harder because your body is not so strong. Your brain doesn't work so well, perhaps. Things catch up with you when you get old. So while you're not too old, practice. Because we don't get this chance forever. Or even if you're young and you have your whole life ahead of you, you'll get caught up in the world and your job and family and all these other things to the point where you'll forget the practice. So while you're not forgetting the practice, do it. See this time as precious. So when you're mindful in the present moment, you know yourself. You know this body, you know this mind. And then you're back with the Dhamma. That's when understanding, insight can arise. Knowing yourself doesn't mean to say trying to make yourself any different than you are. When you meditate, you're not trying to impress anyone or convince anyone else or even yourself. You're just knowing your body, your mind, what's going on right here, right now. So like today, the weather is cold and damp. That's one thing you can know with mindfulness, what it feels like when the air is cold. So you go outside, do some walking meditation later. Just notice what it feels like. When you're mindful, you're just paying attention to the present moment. You don't have to create anything out of that. If you feel good, that's good. If you feel tired, okay, you accept that, you know that. If your mind is settling down with the in-breath and the out-breath, good. If your mind is all over the place, distracted, just accept that and know that. Luang Por Chah used to say, if your mind's not peaceful when you meditate, that's also teaching you something. You can say, I know what it's like when my mind's not peaceful, because you're watching yourself, knowing yourself at that moment. Oh, it's like this, all over the place. Or if you have anger, or worry, or you're sleepy, just know that. Get to know your body and mind in the present moment as it is. And you don't have to form an opinion about it. You know, I'm really good, I'm really bad, I'm this, I'm that. Quality of mindfulness brings up this quality also we call equanimity. Knowing, but with a detached awareness. Bringing your attention back to your body and mind in the present moment, but staying calm, balanced, still as you watch and learn from your experience. And that's where the sense of peace comes from, the more mindfulness you have. But equanimity is not necessarily an end in itself. It's already a good thing, a good quality to have. But it allows you to understand, to know what's going on. And particularly if you see yourself creating suffering in the moment, then you may need to do something about that. Teach yourself to let go. Say probably the most common experience might be you're sitting and you have some pain in your body after a while, and it may make you feel uncomfortable mentally as well, and you get negative thoughts because of this pain. You have itching, pain, different sensations. You feel hot, you feel cold. Then you start thinking and getting distracted, lost, maybe thinking about something that it's more interesting, so you may feel bored as well. But just knowing that, bringing your mind back to the present moment and knowing, oh, it feels like this. It's painful, it's not, it feels like this. You don't have to judge yourself. That you have a good body, terrible body, old body, young body. You have a peaceful mind, a very wise, enlightened mind, or a very confused, deluded mind. Just know it. This is the quality of mindfulness, equanimity. It gives rise to wisdom. Wisdom in Buddhism means knowing the way things are. So say you do have a thought, a reaction to something about how you feel inspired, feel uninspired, you have some pleasant feelings in your body, you have pain in your body, you have a good memory, you have a bad memory. How you react to these things, that you can learn from. And one thing you'll notice is every thought, every reaction arises and ceases if you're mindful. You don't have to add on anything or hold on to anything, you just notice these different movements of mind. I like this, I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that. This is interesting, and that is boring. All these different mental states arising are teaching you something. And one thing you can get from all of them is that they're all anicca, anicca. They arise, they pass away. If your mindfulness is there, strong enough, you're paying attention to your own mind, that's what you see. Thoughts arise, pass away. Sensations in your body arise, pass away. That's a learning, that's something that you're finding out as you become mindful. And if you find out about something, or you know it, that removes delusion, removes confusion and suffering from your mind. You say, oh, I know that. You have a painful leg, oh, I know that. I know what it's like, because you become mindful of it. You have a unpleasant memory pop into your mind and you start thinking negatively about it. I know that. It just comes and goes, it's just another thought. I know that. This is the opposite of having little or no mindfulness, where you just get lost in your different experiences. And the more you get lost in them, the more storytelling you do, the more you get lost in the mental proliferation, the less peaceful you are, the more uncomfortable you feel mentally or physically. So we need to practice mindfulness to help support insight into the way things are, to help see and know ourselves and know this world from the inside out. And we spend most of our life trying to know the world from the outside in, reading and talking and looking at things all the time, going out. And we'll say, yeah, of course I've got to do that because I've got to earn a living, pay the bills, help my family. But if we never practice mindfulness directed back to ourselves, then we end up feeling quite tired and stressed by the world, because we're not really seeing the way things are. We're not knowing ourselves. Actually, it's not that when you practice mindfulness like this, it's not that you're doing something different than you might be, say, tomorrow. If you go back to work tomorrow, you say, well, practice in the monastery is one thing, work is another. It's not, because your body and your mind go with you tomorrow. When you go back to work, or you go home tonight, your mind, your body go with you. And the idea is to take the mindfulness with you and some of this insight with you. You might say it's an ongoing thing we're developing, cultivating mindfulness and wisdom that will help us over and over again through our life. Not just here, now. And we build on it, build on this practice through experience. If we keep practicing, then you'll get better at it. You'll know yourself, you'll know the Dhamma better. Ajahn Chah used to say, when you begin Dhamma practice, you're like the ladle or the spoon in the curry pot. The spoon in the curry pot never knows the taste of curry. There's just a spoon. That's like when we begin the practice. We don't know anything. Mind is all over the place. We don't remember anything. We don't know our body, our mind. We don't know the breath in, the breath out. We don't know impermanence. These ideas and concepts are all new to us. If we never practice in mindfulness, then we never really get out of just being a spoon in the curry pot. Even our whole life we could be a spoon. But as soon as we start bringing up mindfulness, then you change from being a spoon to being a tongue. You taste the curry with your tongue, you know instantly what that taste is. Sweet, sour, salty, bland, sweet, whatever it may be. As soon as it touches your tongue, you know it. That's like being mindful. But if we never practice mindfulness, then we just remain the spoon, never quite knowing what it's sitting in. This quality of mindfulness, the Buddha said, this is the heart of the practice. It's not the only aspect. We practice sila, samadhi, panya, contemplation, listening to the Dhamma, reflecting on it, and then learning from our experience. But we need the mindfulness so that we can actually pay attention to what's going on in this present moment, to know it, to know ourselves. Sometimes people, they ask, oh, Ajahn, I want to practice Dhamma, I want to meditate, I want to be wise, like the Buddha, which is a good aspiration. But how do we develop wisdom, understanding? We have to bring up the mindfulness. Ajahn Chah said, if you're not sure what to look at to develop insight, once you're mindful, once you're aware, turn your attention to your own body. Because most of the time, we're not very aware of our body with mindfulness. We know what we look like because we're always taking selfies and looking in the mirror. But we don't really know the body as a body. You can use your meditation time maybe to investigate that. As you become more calm, whether you're sitting or walking meditation, ask yourself, what is this body that this mind inhabits? What's it made up of? And the Buddha said, look at the body and see it's made up of elements. We say elements, dhatu. There's the earth element, it's the solid part. There's the liquid part. There's the obvious liquids, things like sweat and blood and urine. There's a lot of liquid in this body we don't really notice. It's like the glue that binds all the cells together. Then there's air. You breathe in all the time. Breathe in, breathe out. Air is gas. It's invisible, but we depend on it. The air goes in through the lungs, goes into the blood, goes around the body, and every cell needs blood and oxygen to survive. There's some parts of our body are not needing air. Your hair. That's why when you cut your hair, it doesn't hurt. There's no blood in your hair. It comes out of the blood, but then once it comes above the skin, it doesn't hurt anymore. There's no nerves, no blood. Or your nails, or your teeth. And sometimes the dentist gets it wrong. Don't they? They're doing something with your teeth, and the hard surface of your teeth, that's that earth element. But then they go through to the root or the bit inside and it hurts. They ask you, is it hurting? If you're tough, you don't take any local anesthetic, you just put up with the pain. If you're not tough, you say, oh, give me the anesthetic. Same with our skin. Sometimes we have blemishes on the skin, we want them to get rid of them. We have cysts and other things. The surface of your skin doesn't hurt when you rub it normally, because it's the dead part. As soon as you go under the surface, it hurts, doesn't it? If you cut yourself or scrape yourself. That's because each cell, living cell in the body, needs blood, oxygen. But we forget that, don't we? We only notice when you have, say, an injury or something happens. Like the other day I had a cyst removed, and they said, oh, it's just a small one, don't need any local anesthetic. So they cut in, and then they realised, oh, it's a bit bigger than I thought. 1 centimetre wide, under the skin. So they started cutting around, and they said, oh, no local anesthetic, does it hurt? I said, yeah, it hurts. It was too late. Luckily it was quite quick. Human body is like that. It's made up of living cells which require, there's a solid part, there's a liquid part, and there's air, oxygen. They're also subject to temperature change, heat and cold. Why do we get old? Why does this body get old? Partly because of temperature. The body is constantly requiring heat. That's why you feel cold on a cold day, because the air is cold, so you need to wear more clothes or turn a heater on. But that heat also has an effect on the body. It sort of, you could say it's ripening the body, like, when you have fruit that's hard, you put it somewhere warm and it softens up. The heat actually softens the body up, ripens the body, and that ages the body. So as we're getting older, we're sort of cooking towards our death. But it's just nature, isn't it? There's nothing you can do about that. These 4 elements are constantly kind of changing, influence each other, and they're out of your control. You can't stop the body getting older. Sometimes they get sick when things go wrong. You get germs, bacteria, virus, or some imbalance, one thing more than another, one thing's too much, one thing's too little. But there's no person or being in that. That's just part of nature. And when you're mindful, you direct your attention to the body, you can see that. You can learn that and understand it, and we say you separate the elements out. The mind is one element. We call it the citta, or the element of knowing. Then there's these 4 physical elements which don't know anything. They're just physical. They're just things that exist in nature, but they're not a person or a being. They just come together temporarily. The last element is the space element, just the space between the physical elements. The important thing is to see there's a mind that can know, and then there's the physical elements. Why do you feel peaceful and relaxed when you meditate? Because the mind, you're coming to know the mind more closely, and as you do that, you let go of some of the normal attachment to the physical elements. You're less bothered by sight, sound, taste, smell, even thoughts. So if you become one-pointed and still in samadhi, then at that time maybe you don't notice or feel your body at all. And those elements are still there, but you're no longer clinging to them in a state of samadhi. As you come back out of samadhi, well, maybe you feel the heaviness, the aches and pains, the sensations of the body. It's giving you an insight, isn't it, into the lack of self in the body. There's the mind that knows, one kind of element, and then there's the physical body. You're separating between the two. So we call this separating the elements. And we can only do that, a human being can only do that by cultivating mindfulness, directed to the mind, to the body, until the truth becomes more clear. But that gives us great peace, because it helps us to let go of our more superficial attachment to the world. As we let go of our normal thinking, worrying, concerns about things that we like and want, which promote greed and attachment, things we don't like, which leads to aversion, irritation. We experience more equanimity as we can see body and mind as elements. As this sense of a person, this solid person, starts to dissolve, fade away. It doesn't mean to say there's nothing there. It's just the way you look at this body and mind changes. Your view changes. And one thing you know is, well, the body is impermanent. These four elements don't last together forever. Eventually they go back to the world, to nature. So you understand, this human body is imperfect. It won't last forever, subject to aging, sickness and death. So you don't get so worried about it. A huge amount of suffering in our life is just endlessly worried, concerned about our body or the people we know. We get ill, we worry. Get older, we worry about our death, worry about our comfort, our convenience. It's endless, unless we bring up mindfulness and then reflect and see the truth that these things are impermanent and they're not self. This is why the Buddha taught, practice mindfulness to free your mind from delusion. This is why they say, somebody who's seen the Dhamma, their mind is with the Dhamma like this, they no longer seek to get back at people who maybe have hurt them. And they live with an attitude of forgiveness and letting go. So if you're mindful of your own body and mind as elements, just things in nature or you see in other people, the same. And you see following thoughts of revenge, cruelty, hatred, goes nowhere. It's only making your mind more unhappy, more deluded. So out of all this practice of mindfulness, the result is actually insight and compassion. Understanding leads to being more sensitive to the truth in yourself, so compassion for yourself, and then compassion for other people. Understand them better, that really they're not much different from you. We all have a body that gets older, gets sick and dies. We all want to be peaceful and happy. We all don't want to be suffering. Everyone in this world, every being, every animal is the same. Just unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand how to achieve that. They keep making mistakes. Even we do. Even people who have heard the Dhamma still make mistakes. We still attach, get lost in our moods of greed, anger and delusion. We still create suffering for ourselves. But hopefully over the practice, you do that less and less. So we have a little bit of time left in this session. I'm going to stop talking now and can just practice some mindful sitting. Bring attention to your normal meditation object, if that's the breath. And find the feeling of the breath. Keep paying attention to it, knowing the in-breath, the out-breath. If counting helps, you can count with each in-breath 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, up to 10, and then go back to 1 again. If you're reciting Buddha, recite Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. And just keep using that to pay attention, hold attention in the present moment. We can use this last part of the period just to practice mindfulness for a while, until you hear the bell.